The features and capabilities we are going to talk about today are based on what you can do based on GI features, but Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so when you make purchasing decisions, please make sure you make them based on publicly available features. And if you would like to leave a survey, that would be great. It always makes our sessions better. I don't know if they have more coffee certificates or what motivates your behavior. My name is Mehmet and I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for almost 20 years, dealing with data challenges for almost 25 years. I work for a Salesforce customer and partner, and I am also the Data Matters Trailblazer Community North American lead. More on that as part of your call to action. The number one reason we have data quality issues that impacts everyday lives is us. It is the human factor. So we are going to talk about common language, common understanding of what's possible, and show you some of the tools so we can all find a way to tackle this better together. My assumption, just to make sure we're in the right session, is all of you would ideally have complete, correct, consistent, contextual, compliant, and current data for decision making, right? Not just business decisions, but when you want to shop for something, when you want to book that reservation. So we are going to talk about how we can approach this for our business environments today. The reason most of us are challenged not having consistent, complete, correct, contextual, compliant information is in our CRM org, we have a lot of fields, we have a lot of demand on our time, we don't have a lot of time, and we are often trying to figure out what to fight for while people are asking for that one more field. And I'm assuming if you're like me as a customer, wrong directions, I'm gonna abandon this. You have more than one data source. You are not just using Salesforce CRM, you may have other Salesforce clouds, you may have other orgs, you have non-Salesforce systems, you probably have spreadsheets. And historically, we did not have enough material we can do at scale to actually not just assess data, but prioritize it so you can make the right cleanup decisions and then be able to monitor it so the data stays current and correct. That is my hope to share with you in the next 18 minutes. The framework is going to be, we have 48 slides of content for you to download and refer to next week, where we are going to talk about key concepts as well as tooling knowledge. We are going to talk about a single deep dive on a practical use case and talk about how to look at this from a business outcomes perspective, really in 17 minutes to many. So what is AI-Ready Salesforce Data? Let's talk about some key concepts. For any AI architecture, regardless of technology, you're going to deal with three types of data. Depending on your use case, you're going to want to understand who your customer or partner or supplier is or employee. These may be your accounts, context leads, subscribers, custom objects, you name it. Then you're going to have transactions related to that entity. There will be a correlation, except this is in multiple objects. This is across multiple records. And you're going to have unstructured data that may or may not have any relationship to the other two. The nice thing as you think about your data cloud type sessions is you could bring all of this together based on your business priorities. And of course, what you focus on for data quality is that business priority. So we are going to start talking about how to tackle the challenge of disconnected data one byte at a time. First, let's talk about what data quality is. It is not I have duplicates. It is not I have a field that is 87% populated. This is Salesforce's own definition. Their head of data operations is right there. It is, does this data meet my needs for this one specific business problem? So the same field, the same object may need to have different data quality expectations for different data quality problems. You solve this one at a time. So when we talk about completeness, what does complete data look like to start engaging a lead? What does consistent data look like if I want to optimize the service agent experience? How do I know if something is correct or not? If you can't explain it, we can't know, but we usually know when something is incorrect and when something is out of date there are definitely techniques we can apply based on what we have learned over the past 20 years. The two main reasons people end up with not good data in their orgs, they've never defined what good data is to begin with. And in the few cases they defined it, they never checked if the data was good. If you're doing data migration, lift and shift is the number one reason you end up with the same bad data you had in your new shiny org, and then people blame technology. So I'm going to recommend two articles to read. One of it is by Vanessa Grant. It came out 2 months ago. It is the questions you should ask, especially if you're a BA or an admin, before adding a new field. This is going to help you stop the bleeding. And again, you will be able to download this. The other, the Circles of Success use the same picture again. We are going to talk about what data profiling is in a 2-minute overview, so you can choose the right tools for your own organization. So, Salesforce and many of us that have been around says, if you don't know what data quality problems you have, how do you know what to clean and how do you know what to improve? We're going to spend 2 minutes. So, how many of you know what data profiling is already? Okay, this is for the rest of you. The technical definition of data profiling is what's above. Let's ignore that. Data profiling will tell you data about your data so you know what to focus on or not. If you're worried about, do I have fragmented data? What does that mean? Or is my application actually being used? Do I have data inconsistencies? Should I archive data because I have unused data that's costing my organization money and confusing users? You need to actually look at your data to know, so then you can take technical actions based on business impact and priority to clean it. We are going to dive into one dimension today because we only have 13 minutes left. But the same principle applies. When you profile your data, you get a set of statistics about the data and metadata. For example, and this is a real customer example used with permission, what does it mean if records, contacts older than 2 records have not even been updated for the last 3 years, or older than 3 years? These will show up in search results. It's 72% of the data in that object. Is it meaningful? Is it useful in that application? Knowing can help you make archival decisions. It will tell you which fields are used or not used. Now, some of these may be brand new. Maybe they were added 2 weeks ago, but others might have been around for a long time and not used in the last 3 years. 25+% of custom fields are no longer used in orgs 3 years and older. Industry statistic. It would also tell you, while something appears to be used, 100% populated, it has one and only one distinct value. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that if a field has only one value ever and is always populated, it is probably not very meaningful and reliable. And if you look at value frequency, which is a common feature of data profiling tools, you will know that you have customers both in the United States and in the USA. If you don't discover this, you are not going to have complete, consistent, correct data as the basis of your contextual and compliant displays. Now, even when you do this, one of the things that people usually forget about or don't have time for, data and business processes are always changing. So when you analyze your data, you want to be able to look at the change because things look like they are growing, they are getting better. When a dip happens that is unexpected or a spike, you need to know and you need to reflect. That was 2.5 minutes data profiling one-on-one overview. Read the article if you want the details. So that being data profiling, let's talk about what can we do to assess, prioritize and act on data quality challenges, and we will tie this to AI as well as promised. In general, especially if you're an admin, you want to have a sense of the general data health of your org. It is going to be scary. You are not going to be able to act on everything you find, but it is going to give you quantified statistics to hopefully get attention from your management to say, and we want to do something about it for all of the business challenges. Then you pick a business use case, you solve for that, and you iterate. But just because you solve it, you need to also make sure the data remains reliable. We are going to go through all of these steps. So let's talk about that line by one. When you do data profiling across your objects, you can see some very easy to explain nuggets such as, oh, we are over limits, we are about to need to justify paying for an upgrade just because we are over limits. But apparently, we've never used 30% of our fields, and in the last current plus 2 years, we haven't used 45% of our fields. Real customer example, by the way, that was trying to find money for an upgrade just because they were above their field limit, no other business reason. You can also quantify, oh, by the way, don't worry, we can save some money because we don't need to pay for extra storage because we can archive that data. This is a single screen view. Data matters in convincing people in investment decisions. Then you can look at, one level deeper. We talked about the archiving levels of details. You can look at, am I controlling my data? Do I have validation rules? Even if you don't have admin rights, some of these tools will expose the key insights to you. And then we start diving deeper. Now, if you're here and if you say, I saw your session, I want to know what field, send me a LinkedIn message, I'll send you the spec. These are the reports I like looking at in our own org. When people ask me about it as a community leader, how do I know if I have data problems or not? I want to highlight 3 of them. Priority 0, this is foundational, this is the one that will get your business leaders' attention, is do we have fragmented data? Not duplicates, not fill rates. Do we have fragmented data? Because this means you don't understand your customer, supplier, partner engagement. This will be the one that will fund your efforts. Then we can look at things like, oh, do we have disproportionate default value use? Do we only have one value even though we have 7 active pick lists? Or you can look at, do we have things we've configured that have never been used? What does this mean to change management, user adoption? It could indicate people are not using the application the way you should. So let's take one specific example, and I'm going to submit to you again that if I want to figure out what's happening in my system, I have 2 choices. I can come and spend a number of weeks, each and every one of you, interview you, ask you what you think, consolidate it, put it in decks, or I can look at data in my org and see what it tells me. If I want to know what is my data disconnect, I should look at contact points and I should look at fields that are disproportionately distinct. If something is 80, 90, 95% unique, but never 100, that's a primary key, I'm going to be able to know what my duplicate potential is. For example, I see the same email show up 96% of the time. I see a phone number show up 80% of the time. It feels like there's an opportunity to consolidate. In the meantime, I see things not often populated, and these are fields I shouldn't use. If you're planning on doing duplicate management, data cloud harmonization, you need to have these insights. You can then ignore the fields that are not meaningful. That saves you time and money. You're not using credits. And by the way, this is your initial hypothesis to do a data cloud POC using the free credits, and you just reduce your scope. By just knowing the fields, it's not going to be sufficient because you are going to have bad data in those fields. But how many of you have more than 600 fields in the contact object? Like there are customers that have 800 or 900 fields. How many of you have more than 400 fields? There are a few. So you want to focus on the fields that matter. In this case, these are the fields that matter. And if I have sample@email.test, real example, na@na.com, they will lead to bad matches regardless of technology. So by being able to identify and quantify these, you can put in place a data cleanup strategy. The way to calculate these is very straightforward. You can look at field value length. You can look at things that show up, my favorite, 10 times more than the average of every other value. And now you have a list from a Salesforce report. All of these are possible on the platform. So once you quantify data disconnects, which is what your head of sales, marketing service is going to pay attention to, then you can talk to whoever is responsible for Salesforce CRM and say, look, 87% of our fields do not have a data owner, they do not have a business definition, and no one is going to think you're going to go through every single field. So now let's go to the use case perspective and say, how do you focus your efforts in a meaningful way? The reality is we all have multiple data sources, we have tens of objects, we have hundreds of fields per object. The way to focus on this is this 5-step methodology that I have deployed, my colleagues have deployed multiple times. For your use case, you normally need only 3 to 5 objects because your use case is about the business outcome. Then you look at how do we know when that outcome was successful or not. This could be a won versus lost opportunity, a case that led to a payout or not, a case that is in or outside of an SLA, a donation that was renewed or not in a future year. Once you look at that, you look at what is the difference between successful and unsuccessful outcomes of completed transactions, and then see what data is the difference based on data statistics and data value statistics. This is the reason we did a profiling 2-minute overview, by the way. Those are your indicative fields that would make the soonest possible impact to start your journey. Those are the ones you want to have data owners for initially, so they verify your data quality, help you complete the metadata, and then you start iterating. So let's look at an example. In this case, we're looking at opportunities won versus lost. We are looking at recent data. If I have a 7-year-old org, looking at 7 years worth of data is not going to be informative. What about the last 6 months? What about the current plus the previous year? As I do this at every single field level, you can see your field rates, you can see field value frequency, you can see what fields are used most often, and then again using a formula either as part of your report types or a report formula, you can identify what are the fields that are the outliers. You then look at, do I have a data owner for those fields that seem to matter, because you need to know somebody in the business that can explain why this is not being used as much. Or, look, we know that as a business, you win 1/5 of every deal. Why is it 50-50 win-loss ratio? So, identifying data owners of your most important fields help you identify champions. It helps you tie their effort directly to potential business risk. Because if this was wrong, you know what? Every AI agent you build on top of it is also going to be based on faulty information. So, once you figure this out, one time you do the cleanup, you want to monitor the data to make sure it stays clean. If any of you have used the Salesforce Labs data quality dashboards, it showed how you can use formulas. You can now use these insights, including across objects, to find out what fields you should include in your data quality monitoring formulas. The other thing you should do is not just have a formula you can report on, because data is always changing. You want to be able to associate those formula fields as part of your data statistics gathering. So if your KPIs are getting better or getting worse, you also have the data in your org, so you can fire an alert through flow. As you do this, as you monitor, don't forget to keep your house clean so things don't get worse for any of the new fields. Add a description, add help desk, add a data owner for any new field you add while working on historical data in an iterative way. We still have 2 minutes, bonus round. What else you can do once you define that with Copilot? So you already heard that you can define prompts. Once you have formulas that are well defined, you can create a prompt that now takes advantage of that. So you discovered something like, I think I have a 75% probability of closing this opportunity in a timely manner, but data tells me I have a 100% chance of risking it. Why? Maybe you had a formula that looked at the difference between close date and the stage and key fields that were consistently populated when you won opportunities in the past. So if you have the right data and metadata, you can get outcomes like this that says, oh, you don't have next steps, you don't have an NDA, you think your opportunity is going to close in 4 days, unlikely, or you did not enter the data you were supposed to. This will help change human behavior. So, 1 minute left, call to action. I hope you feel like you got a quick overview enough that while you won't remember this 30 minutes from now, you will go ahead and download this. This was the promise. Your call to action is, after today, rest, reflect in that order, and download the stack. There are free tools on AppExchange that will walk you through this. You can execute the steps, assess your data so you know versus hope that your data is good or be fearful that it's not and you don't want to take a look. Prioritize, act, and monitor. And if you want to share your stories, what works well, what doesn't, join the Trailblazer communities about data. And in November, we have Dreaming in Data, the very first Trailblazer community conference on data across all roles and products. Thank you for your time.